Jafar Hasnan. I'm a presenter and correspondent at TRT World. You know, let me begin by saying that 1 year ago today, I don't think we could have imagined having the conversation that we're about to have right now. Back then, Syria's future was locked under this grip of a brutal dictatorship. Talking about reconstruction, rebuilding, recovery, at the time was almost unthinkable. But now, the dynamics have changed. With the fall of the Assad regime, a new chapter has begun for Syria. And I think the international community, world leaders, they're watching Syria take fragile steps towards rebuilding a country that has been scarred by decades of war and more than 5 decades of a brutal dictatorship. I remember being in Damascus, I think it was 5 days after the fall of the Assad regime, and I witnessed firsthand the joy, the uncertainty, and this quiet sense of hope that millions of Syrians have right now towards their future. So I think the big question right now about Syria is, what is next? How can the stability be restored? And what will accountability look like? So we'll be discussing all this and more in this session. Let's begin. And allow me to welcome our panelists. First, please welcome to the stage His Excellency Hamza Al-Mustafa, Minister of Information, Syrian Arab Republic. Minister. Please welcome Ms. Huda Atassi, co-founder and chairwoman, International Humanitarian Relief. Please. And now, please welcome Ms. Carla Contina, Assistant Secretary General, Head of the Independent Institution on Missing Persons in Syria, the United Nations. And last but not the least, Professor Talha Kose, President, Turkish National Intelligence Academy. Professor. Thanks very much once again to all of you and to our panelists for being here today. I think what we're about to discuss is certainly one of the most important topics of 2025 and perhaps many years to come. And you know, as someone who has been to Syria multiple times, I've been to Idlib in 2021, and I've seen, like I mentioned, the aftermath of the fall of the Assad regime, the joy, the uncertainty, and this quiet sense of hope that millions of Syrians have. But again, you know, when we talk about Syria right now, of course, there are many positive things that are happening, but there are still many obstacles, right? And that's where we're discussing rebuilding, reconstruction, recovery efforts, accountability. Minister, I would like to begin with you. You are the Minister of Information for the Syrian Arab Republic right now. And I think it's fair to say that media has a very, very crucial role to play in the future of the country. Not just the political future of the country, but also the future of recovery, future of rebuilding, future of accountability. And I know you were a former journalist as well. I mean, how are you planning to foster a media environment that is going to help the rebuilding, reconstruction, recovery process of your country?
Thank you, Jafar. It's a great honor for me to participate in this prestigious event. However, it's not my first time participating in TRT World Forum. Last year, I was here in the audience, listening to the expert and official talking about Syria and talking about normalization with Assad as the only rational choice to deal with the Syrian problem or Syrian crisis at that time. Nobody from the expert, of course our people and I, were convinced that the collapse of Assad regime will be inevitable. However, nobody will expect it that Assad regime can fall. So today I'm here representing my new Syria as a Minister of Information. So it's a great moment for me. I think it's a significant also for the Syrian people. So regarding to, yeah, of course, that's media playing a crucial role in post-conflict era, especially in Syria. As you know, that after 14 years of revolution and armed conflict, so Syria has a lot of division, political division, social division, and as you know, that the ousted regime invested in this division and invested in sectarianism and sectarian discourse as the survival strategy. So, so after this time, and because there was no professional and objective media, and even the experience in the exile, we started, for example, when the revolution outbreak in 2011, we started with more than 1,000 media outlets, and it's ended in 2014 with only, I think I can recall it, only seven or eight media outlets working in the exile. So during the 14 years, the Syrian people relied on the social media platform to access to the news and to share narratives. Of course, it was beneficial for us, but however, now after the liberation and when we started the state building process, so we found that all the misinformation and disinformation, populist discourse, they are using a social media. Additionally, we have an organized bot farm every day that's circulating the heated speech between the Syrian, among the Syrians. So when I first appointed as the Minister of Information, so it was very, very challenging task for me. So we have decided to start a comprehensive approach in order to deal with this situation. For example, we started to restructure the official media to transform it from state-run media to kind of public media. You know that most of the institutions during the Assad regime, it just served as a centralized tool for propaganda and disinformation. So, so that's why we started with the institutional. We relaunched Al-Ikhbari as a TV channel, focusing on the news first, and then we relaunched SANA, the former agency, and we started to relaunch all the media outlet and institution in Syria. We believe, Jafar, that the absence of media, especially, I will also talk about the private and independent media, because as a government, we believe that the official media should exist during the transitional period in order to offer the narrative or the governmental narrative. However, we believe that the governmental or the formal media should not be dominant. So that's why we reviewed the regulation and we facilitate to the private and independent media to work. And also we called foreign media outlet to come and invest it in Syria. Regarding, for example, giving licensing for the independent and the private media outlet, we received more than 600 applications. And we reviewed and we gave accreditation to, until now, to 400. Can you imagine that in the new Syria, after 5 or 6 decades from authoritarianism and dictatorship, so now we have more than 400 media outlets. And even during the last 9 months, for the Foreign Media Directorate in the Ministry of Information, can you imagine that we received more than 3,000 foreign media delegation. And they are working freely, they have access to cover everywhere. As a government, we decided that we have to invest in expanding the margin of freedom as much as we can, because we are looking to the margin of freedom as the gain of the Syrian revolution and the Syrian people. And as a government, maybe we have to manage the expectation regarding to everything, in economic things and political issue. However, but regarding to the margin of freedom and freedom of expression and freedom of press, we have to expand the margin. So our strategy is to open door. We believe in a government that, as I said, in the ups and the existence of the media during the transitional period could be tiring, but the absence of the media will have a catastrophic consequences. And that's why we prefer to engage in a criticism and to rebuild or to offer a friendly environment for media in order to rebuild the confidence with the audience.
Indeed. And you know, Minister, I remember that back in December of 2024, and I would say January, February as well, there were a lot of fake news articles circulating on the media about Syria.
Until now.
And I have, of course, you know, as a journalist, I have seen that that the amount of fake news has certainly gone down, but there are still many obstacles, right? What do you think is the biggest obstacle when it comes to countering misinformation and disinformation when it comes to the Syrian media landscape?
I mentioned that the absence of professional and objective media. So that's why we decided in the first step, in order to countering misinformation and disinformation, to pave the way for friendly media environment in order that can facilitate the work of the professional media outlets. So in order, there, as I said, Jafar, there is kind of vacuum, informational vacuum. And this vacuum was filled by the social media. And the social media contributed to spread of misinformation and disinformation. Now, in the new era and in the new Syria, so it's important that if we want to counter the disinformation, so the professional media outlet can play the role, this important role. And the second of issue, that we have a lot of campaign regarding to raise awareness about the dangers of misinformation and disinformation. Of course, we had some obstacle. That's because of sanction of international sanction. We in the ministry, we hindered from direct contact with the Meta or X in order to get some knowledge and some information about the campaign and about the fake cam and the bots and the fake account. However, we reached a strategy and we established kind of digital unit and a kind of countering disinformation unit, and we are we, we are tracking all the links, we are tracking all the fake news, and we invested also in establishing kind of fact-checking and verification also unit, and to provide the audience with the right information. And also we found that that's because of the traditional or conventional way conventional method of the ministry work or the media work in Syria. So we decided to restructure the media bureau in order to transform our job from conventional purpose of media to kind of communication. So we established an offices for governmental communication in order to provide the audience with the all required information. So once they get information from the right sources, this is contributed to reduce the amount of the misinformation and disinformation within the audience in itself. And also, Jafar, we have started kind of when we came to Damascus, and we found that the old law of the media is not appropriate for the new era. So we had a discussion about the best way to reorganize or how to distinguish between the absolute freedom and responsibility.
Right.
And of course, when you are talking about transitional period, you should talk about constructive journalism. Constructive journalism is a bit different from journalism itself.
Journalism that fosters peace.
Yeah. So we have decided after consultation that's to start a process of writing code of ethics.
Okay.
This code of ethics it's not just a charter of honor, the conventional charter of honor, or not similar to the media law that we know. We decided to this code of ethics should be bottom-up approach. So we had more than 15 workshops, and this in consultation with the local journalists, with the union, with the civil society, and we have until now we haven't finished yet. And this, as I said, we did more than 15 workshops in Syria, and we are planning to arrange or to organize 2 outside Syria in order to let the Syrian diaspora participate in writing this code of ethics, and this code of ethics will be enacted in law. So, of course, as you know, the freedom of expression and the freedom of press, and finding a kind of responsible and constructive journalism during the transitional period is not an easy thing, and it's a kind of evolving and gradual process, but we have determined and we have decided to, as I said, to invest in the freedom of expression. So we have determination and willingness to continue to reach the perfect consequences as much as we can.
And we wish you all the very best with that. You mentioned civil society. We have a member of the civil society with us, Huda Atasi. Huda, of course, this process that Syria is going through right now, the recovery, rebuilding process, it's a fragile process. Like the minister mentioned, like I mentioned in the introduction, that there are divisions that need to be reconciled, right? Syria has to move towards a national reconciliation. And that involves a crucial role, participation from the civil society. I understand Syria, over the past many years, has produced some amazing emergency civil society workers who have been on the front lines, helping Syrians who have been affected by Assad's brutal dictatorship and the ongoing war at the time. But how do you think the civil society now can play a more active role, perhaps a role that would influence national policy making in the country?
مساء الخير، تحياتي أستاذ حمزة وللجمهور الأكارم. الحقيقة أنا سعيدة اليوم بوجودي على هاي المنصة اليوم لنتحدث عن المجتمع المدني السوري، أهميته ومشاركته بالعملية السياسية القادمة. الحقيقة المجتمع المدني خلال الفترة السابقة كان له دور كتير مهم وكبير، ليس في مناطق النظام، لأنه كان المجتمع المدني في مناطق النظام يعتبر هم الإرهابيون، من يقدم المساعدة للمواطنين السوريين يعتبرون بمرحلة الإرهابيين، فنحن كنا مبعدين عن هذا المنطقة. ولكن في شمال غرب سوريا ودول الشتات والدول المجاورة كان المجتمع المدني السوري مجتمع ناشط جداً، قدم خدمات جداً قيمة أثرت على استقرار النازحين واللاجئين بالمناطق اللي لجأوا لها. قدم التعليم، قدم الإغاثة، قدم المشافي، جميع الخدمات اللي المفروض أن تقدم من الدولة كان المجتمع المدني هو من يقوم بهذه الخدمات. اليوم دوره إن شاء الله في سوريا جديدة سوف يكون دور أهم وأكبر، لأنه أولاً المساحة المفتوحة الآن للمجتمع المدني لكي يكون مشارك في عملية إعادة الإعمار، في اللجان التي شكلت وهيئت مثل لجنة العدالة الانتقالية، لجنة المصالحة الوطنية وهيئات أخرى. المجال المفتوح والمساحة المفتوحة للمجتمع المدني سوف تهيئ له القدرة على تقديم خدمات أكبر وأجل. يعني اليوم المجتمع المدني أصبح دوره أكبر، انتقل من مرحلة الإغاثة إلى مرحلة التنمية. هذا التحول بالنشاط ما بين سوريا السابقة وسوريا الحالية يتطلب منه أدوار مختلفة، يتطلب منه رؤية جديدة، موقع جديد، ودور فعال بالمجتمع. المجتمع المدني اليوم ما بين الداخل والخارج مطلوب فتح مساحة لتقريب وجهات النظر ما بين المجتمع المدني الذي أنشئ في الخارج. مثلا نحن اليوم في تركيا لدينا 6 شبكات مجتمع مدني سوري تم إنشاءها في 14 سنة الأخيرة. هذا ليس موجود في مناطق النظام السوري. اليوم المساحة مفتوحة لتقريب وجهات النظر ما بين المجتمع في دول الشتات وشمال غرب سوريا والمجتمع المدني الموجود داخل سوريا. والمطلوب هو حقيقة هو فتح الفرص، رفع قدرات المجتمع المدني الداخلي، والاتفاق على رؤية موحدة لكيفية إدارة السياسات الوطنية. المجتمع المدني قادر على أن يكون مشارك في وضع السياسات الوطنية في عملية الإعمار وغيرها من العمليات الهامة والمشاريع الهامة في مستقبل سوريا الحديث.
Thank you very much. Fascinating insights indeed. Now, Ms. Quintana, let me come to you. When we talk about Syria's future right now, I think we cannot ignore what we saw happen in prisons like Sednaya prison, right? It made headlines, of course, when this story first broke. And the thing is, no one really knows what's going on right now. Where are those people? Where are the missing persons? And this brings me to the question of accountability. How do we ensure accountability right now?
Thank you, Jafar. First, I would like to thank you for the invitation, and I would like to start with what you said at the beginning. No one would have envisioned a year ago or 10 months ago that we would be sitting here and that we would be talking about how to look for the missing in Syria with Syrians within Syria. So there are lots of challenges, as Minister and Huda just said. We don't even know exactly how many missing people we have in Syria. But once you get there, once we got there, after the fall of the regime, we were able to realize how deep this problem is. Everyone has someone missing in Syria or knows someone that is missing.
Wow.
When you take a taxi, when you go to a restaurant, when you walk in the street, everyone starts talking, and everyone is free now to talk about their missing. Mm-hmm. That's something very, very important. So when we talk about the missing and you talk about accountability, before talking accountability, I would like to talk about truth and how truth is fundamental, and looking for the missing is about truth. How truth is fundamental for reconstruction and for peace building. So even though, I mean, as Huda was just saying, there are lots of families of the missing, Syrian civil society, the government talking about the missing, it is important for us to start all working together and trying to start connecting the dots. No one can do this alone. We have experiences all over the world. We have been looking for the missing all over the world for more than 4 decades. And we know from experience that we have to work together. Of course, this has to be a Syrian-led process with the support of international communities. I would like just to go back very quickly to the families of the missing. The families of the missing have been looking for them and fighting for the international community to look into Syria for many years, and that is why this institution exists. We have the mission, the mandate to look for everyone missing in Syria and to support the families. And that is it's a huge mandate that now we are working with Syrian society and the Syrian government to implement this. The Syrian government has established a national commission for the search of the missing last May. We are working with them. When we talk about looking for the missing, Jafar, we have to think it as a collective endeavor. The family is always at the center, civil society, of course the government, of course international organizations, but regional actors are fundamental as well as the media in raising awareness of this problem, national problem, but also in help us fight misinformation and to help us explain how complex looking for the missing is. And talking about Sednaya, I mean, we all saw all these images after the fall of the regime. You were there, we were all there. We were able to see papers on the floor. We were able to see burned offices. We were able to listen from survivors how they were tortured, how they were killed there. And I have to say, and I think it's important for everyone to acknowledge that Sednaya is just an example of many others. It's a symbol of a regime of terror that we are all here now to help Syria to start rebuilding this process of truth. And of course, Sednaya is just an example of how big the challenge is in looking for the missing, in truth-telling, in data protection, in archives, in science, in technology. Coming back to where I started, this is a collective endeavor. There are many challenges in front of us, but we have to remember that we were not even able to be talking about this some months ago.
Right.
So there is a window of opportunity, there is hope. You said, you talk about hope, Amal, and we are here to help Syrians and support Syrians in this path of reconstruction and peace, and of course of looking for their loved ones, because looking for the missing is not only a right of their families, and knowing the truth is not only a right of the families of the missing, but of the whole Syrian society.
Is there any precedent to what we are seeing in terms of missing persons in Syria when we look at the entire world? Have you seen something like this before?
I have been working on this file for more than 2 decades now. And there is, I mean, we have seen many horrors all over the world. And I don't like to make comparisons because, I mean, if you talk about Argentina, we're talking about 30,000 missing. We talk about Guatemala, 40,000 missing. Colombia, more than 300,000. In Mexico, more than 130,000. Bosnia, Sri Lanka. But I mean, Syria, it's in terms of the size and the size of the population, at least in my experience, I have never been in a place where, as I said previously, everyone has someone missing or knows someone that is missing.
Thank you very much. Fascinating insights. Professor Talakosa, let me come to you now. And you know, as we have been talking in this discussion, there are many problems facing the country right now, and one of them is, of course, the idea of reconciling differences. Because Syria is a country, you know, with many different ethnicities. There are political divisions which are trying to be reconciled right now. And I understand you have been working on conflict resolution. You have been researching on that idea, on the idea of identity-based reconciliation. So, you know, let me put it this way. If you were advising the Syrian government today, what would you tell them?
Well, I would recommend from my perspective, I'm an expert on peace building, and definitely peace building perspective focuses more on reaching the positive peace, which is a difficult path, includes economic, political reconciliation, rebuilding the institution, rebuilding the security apparatus, but on top of everything, rather than doing this by top-down approach, imposing to people, which was done before, trying to do this by somehow in an inclusive manner from bottom-up approach. So what is needed at this moment, I think we have three contradictory issues, three contradictory missions for Syria. First of all, nation building. I mean, all the identity groups have been fragmented. So they have been divided in the colonial era, they have been divided during the Ba'athist regime. They have been used against each other. So this is one task. The second task is state building. I mean, all the institutions has been fragmented. You know, bureaucracy is weak, military is dysfunctional, police and intelligence. So this is another task. And on top of everything is a long-term peace building where all the functioning institutions, functioning people reconcile and rebuild the country. So once you break the ways, it's easy, but bringing back is very difficult because you need to have consensus of people. So you cannot bring back the ways. So people should decide whether we're going to go for plate, sphere, or something else. So you need to create some kind of national dialogue to bring people together. I think at the bottom, so you can build a state top-down, but this time you can get into the same mistake which was done before. So authoritarian state building, which focuses more on security structure, yes, this can be done. But at the same time, this needs to be done with the consent of the people. You can try to bring people together as a national dialogue, rebuilding a nation, going back to the origins, but this necessitates some form of national dialogue, which will take a long period of time rebuilding the trust, rebuilding the social fabric of the Syrian society, which also gets back to the issue of what has been done during the civil war, missing people, the memory with regard to violence. So, thinking all these things together, yes, if you put all your resources to state building, you can build a state. You can have a, mechanism of strong leadership, but this time you can also miss the consent of the people, support of the people. So I think at the basis of everything, there should be some form of national dialogue, bringing people together, creating some kind of trust, and bringing representatives together, working on rules, norms, and constitution. And on top of this, on the basis of national trust, I think institutions can be built much easily. So there will be interim periods where all the institutions probably will be weak, where the state may be weak. But if our Syrian friends also invest on the idea of national dialogue, bringing people together and building on top of grassroots level, I think this may be much more difficult, but much more sustainable in terms of reaching a positive peace.
Let me add a quick follow-up here. See, what I struggle to understand as a journalist, in the priority ladder, where should be this national dialogue? Because see, we have to be fair to the new administration, new government in Syria right now. They have a lot on their plate. They're struggling with the economy, right? Then you have the reconstruction, rebuilding efforts. So this national dialogue, where should it come? Should it come before everything else or after Syria has achieved economic prosperity, more stability? What's your navigation through this?
I think it's not an alternative to anything. I mean, first of all, security is a must, okay? But how you function security is a different story, So if you put all your resources to security, you can build military apparatus, police, But this time, this may probably focus too much on the security. You may miss the economic dimension. You may miss the national reconciliation dimension. So I think at the basis of, and on the other hand, some regions that have, tendency to fragment from the central government would also put some of their resources. They will be supported by external actors. So if you put more resources on security, you may need more resources for security, increasing resources. So I think there should be...
So you're saying security is the key?
No, security is not the key. So security is not the solution. You have to invest in security, but the basic services needs to be functioned, electricity, food, and so this will increase the legitimacy of the current administration. You have to start a genuine grassroots level dialogue so that you don't need to, put too much, emphasis on security. People will increasingly trust each other and trust to the administration. So this should go hand in hand. So there is no, but I think at the basis, yes, you need security, you need basic services, and you have to build national dialogue. So the legal transformation, constitutional transformation, and the entire process of nation building should be based on some form of national dialogue. So if the new constitution, new rules are based on this form of constructive dialogue, I think they will be much more sustainable. Because in the past we know that in Libya, in Lebanon, in Iraq, the constitutional legal apparatus which missed the national dialogue dimension failed. So this time we have to, I think the Syrians should do a couple of things together, not prioritizing security at the top, but trying to also provide services, provide some form of constructive dialogue within the society as well as with the neighboring countries. So that's also important because their support will accelerate the process of normalization. So there are a couple of things needs to be done together. Yeah.
All right, fascinating insights. Professor, I'm going to stick to this national dialogue theme for a second here because I think it's very important for the future of the country. Mr. Minister, what kind of role do you think the media can play in encouraging this national dialogue right now? Are you doing something with that regard right now?
Yeah, national dialogue is an important tool in order to consolidate the transition. So since the collapse of that regime, the new government engaged in multi-layer national dialogue. So the first round, I think, Huda was the organizer of the National Dialogue Committee. So I'm a member of the National Dialogue Committee. You can ask her. Maybe she can reply better. But however, yeah, reconciliation, national dialogue, unity, journalism of peace, inclusivity, diversity, respecting human rights, even allowing to reflecting all identity and sub-identity is something media can contribute positively to the advance of this value. So. And in the Ministry of Information, as I said, I mentioned that we started a process. And when I said process, I'm focusing on the process itself rather than the consequences. We started a process of writing code of ethics. This code of ethics is include a national dialogue. It include dialogue with the journalist, union, civil society, not only on journalistic right or something like that, but include about the principle and the value that as the Syrian media in the new Syria we should adhere. So, and also regarding to the dialogue itself, that's as I told you, that's when we started thinking about restructuring the media, the official media in Syria, we decided we are not interested in shaping the new structure or the new media based on the conventional way or the conventional methods. We redefine the role of media that we have to transform from state-run media to the public media. You know, Jafar, what the public media means. Public media is not a voice, or public media not representing the governmental perspective, but only reflect all voices, the government, society, and even the opponent of the Syrian, of the government. So, for example, Al-Ikhbari and even Sana and the newspaper and all the media outlet, I'm talking about the official media outlet now, offering a space, a good space for all opponent and commentator and human rights organization who have, for example, a reservation on the authority performance to participate, to appear on the TV and to provide their perspective about everything. So we believe that this kind of dialogue will playing a crucial role in advancing the inclusivity and the diversity and the freedom of journalism, which I mentioned is essential for a transitional period.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Odal, let me come to you. Of course, the Minister already mentioned that you have been trying to host events that try to foster that dialogue in your country right now. But when we look at the civil society in Syria right now, Syria, I think one thing, when we talk about the country, we have to establish it's coming out of decades of dictatorship, over a decade of war. So this fragmentation has of course caused the civil society to be society members, society organizations to be isolated from one another. How do you bring them together? Because bringing the civil society together is going to help with the national dialogue, right?
الحقيقة الحوار الوطني من خلال مشاركتي فيه كعضو بلجنة الحوار الوطني كان الحقيقة تجربة جدا رائعة خاض الشعب السوري لأول مرة منذ 60 عام. يعني منذ 60 عام الشعب السوري لم يتحاور بكل شفافية ووضوح وحرية. هاي التجربة اللي خضناها بالشهر الثاني من هاي السنة 2025 كان لها وقع جدا رائع على كل مكونات الشعب السوري. نحن بلجنة الحوار الوطني السوري استطعنا أن نتحدث مع أكثر من 4000 مواطن سوري وسورية من مختلف الأطياف والمكونات والمحافظات، نساء، شباب، رجال. هاي التجربة حقيقة هي تجربة ثرية جدا بالمخرجات اللي خرجت منها. نحن بمؤتمر الحوار خرج عنه الإعلان الدستوري، خرج عنه تشكيل الحكومة، خرج عنه كتير مخرجات بعد الحوار الوطني اللي أجريناه. والحوار لم يتوقف في سوريا. الحقيقة الحوار هو كان مفتوح منذ أول يوم بعد التحرير. منذ أول يوم بعد ما كسرت القيود فتح الحوار، وكانت هناك مساحات مفتوحة لكل السوريين أن يتحاوروا بكل حرية وبكل شفافية، وكل منهم يتكلم من خلال نظرته لسوريا المستقبل، نظرته لما يتمنى أن تكون سوريا. يتحدثون عن التحديات، عن الصعوبات، عن ماذا يطمحون لسوريا، وما يزال الحوار مفتوح. يعني نحن اليوم نعيش في بلد حرة مفتوحة. منظمات المجتمع المدني لديها المساحة الواسعة والممتدة للقيام بعدة حوارات. يعني على مستوى المنظمة التي أعمل بها أنا وأترأسها لدي حوار عن الهوية الثقافية، حوار عن الهوية الاقتصادية، نقوم بجولات بالمحافظات، نحاور أطياف مختلفة من الشعب السوري يتحدثون بكل حرية وطلاقة عن ما يتمنون. فالحوار حقيقة هو يعني من أهم الأعمال اللي حصلنا عليها بعد التحرير. نعتبره إنجاز للسوريين أنهم أصبحوا يتحاورون بكل حرية، وأصبحت هاي المساحة واسعة ومفتوحة بالنسبة لهم، وهم يعبرون عن تطلعاتهم، عن أحلامهم، عن ماذا ينوون خطط مستقبلية لهم ولأطفالهم ولعائلاتهم. فهذه المساحة مفتوحة وموجودة، ونحن كمجتمع مدني نستغلها على أكبر ما نستطيع. والحوارات ما تزال مستمرة في سوريا، ونحن سوف نخرج بأبحاث. حقيقة نحن نعطي لأنفسنا فترة معينة من هذه الحوارات، سوف نخرج بأبحاث. هذه الأبحاث والدراسات سوف نشاركها مع صناع القرار بسوريا لحتى نكون مشاركين في بناء سوريا الحديثة. المجتمع المدني حقيقة هو أقرب ما يكون إلى المجتمع المحلي، هو على تواصل مباشر مع الشعب، مع الناس، يستطيع أن يفتح معهم الحوارات بكل سهولة وأريحية، ويأخذ هذه المخرجات نأخذها لننشرها كأوراق بحثية ممكن أن يستفيد منها صناع القرار ونشارك بها في صنع سوريا المستقبل إن شاء الله.
Thank you very much for that, Huda. Now, Ms. Contina, let me come to you. I think accountability is also part of the national dialogue that we are talking about right now in Syria, and especially when it comes to the missing persons. Once we know more information and more details about what's going on and what happened to these people, I think it's going to give some sort of closure, if I may, to the Syrian people, right? I think they deserve it. They need to know what's going on. But again, we don't know when that closure will come, because again, it is a difficult process. And I know your organization is actively working with this regard. But in terms of the families of the missing people right now, of course, one thing that's on their mind is what happened to their loved one, right? But at the same time, these families are also going through poverty and trauma. And I think it's not just these families. I mean, if you look at the wider dynamic in Syria right now, more than 80% of the population is living below poverty lines. So let me ask you this, how can your institution, what do you think your institution can do with regards to the humanitarian situation, especially considering the missing families? How can your institution help in serving victim-centered justice in this national dialogue reconstruction effort?
Yes. Thank you. I'm going to repeat this all over, because I truly believe that no one can do this alone. And when we are talking about victims and families of the missing in Syria, and many other Syrians that have been victims of so many crimes and human rights violations, we have to all come together to help them on the path, through the path of justice and truth. When we are talking about families that don't have access, that were displaced, that live in poverty, that don't have access to health, to education, that have been through all this trauma and of crimes and human rights violations, we have to think that this is not only a humanitarian issue. It is also a barrier to pursue truth, justice, and reconciliation. Because so many people in Syria, if you travel Syria, have so many needs. And plus that, they want truth and justice. And of course, I cannot, I should not talk for them. They have their own strong voice. What I can tell you is that we are working with the families of the missing. Our institution is a family-centered mechanism, and it's not only that I am saying it, they actually were the ones who created this institution before the General Assembly. So when we say we're victim-centered, we do not do anything without them knowing and being part of this effort and of this process. We work, of course, with many CSOs that have been very active abroad and within Syria. We are working with international organizations from the UN and from ICRC and other international organizations. We are working and talking to member states from the region and from all over the world to come and to help us support this nationally led effort in terms of helping them combat poverty and trauma. We are working in referral systems. We are, of course, working with the Syrian government. We are working in referral systems. We have an advisory board. We work with families on a daily basis. But when we think about reconstructing Syria and supporting the families, we have also to take into consideration a very complex context. And you have been repeating the concept of accountability, truth, justice. I think one of the biggest challenges, one of the many challenges Syrians have right now is, of course, the transitional justice process.
Right.
That includes the missing.
Very good point.
That
yes.
includes the missing. So it's, Syrians are building this process. They are discussing of how this transitional justice process is going to work for them, because what we have to say about transitional justice all over the world is that it works differently for each country. So Syrians are building are now discussing their own national answer, while we from the international community and we from the Independent Institution on Missing Persons, with our humanitarian mandate, support families and Syrian efforts to build their answer of their own. But I would like to add that we not only support families within Syria, but also abroad Syria. We are working on referral system. We're working with other governments to be able to create this network. As I said, no one can do this alone, to support Syrians. Rebuilding Syria, it's very important not only for Syrians, but also for the region. And it implies dignity, justice, and hope.
No, I understand it. What your institution is doing is a very complex operation, right? It involves many technicalities, and it's a difficult environment to work in. What's the biggest challenge that you face when it comes to finding these people?
I think this, what I'm going to say doesn't only apply to Syria, it applies to everywhere in the world that where we are looking for the missing. Information and sharing information is the biggest challenge when looking for the missing. Everyone, when we talk about search, we have to think about as if it was, as if we have a puzzle, but no one has all the pieces of that puzzle. The government has important pieces of the puzzle, families have important pieces of the puzzle, international institutions have other pieces of the puzzle, so CSOs, other governments have this information. And the biggest challenge everywhere in the world is to make all these actors to share or to interconnect their systems in order to bring these pieces to the table. Otherwise, it is going to be very hard to find the missing. We will only have one piece of the puzzle. And in order for all these actors to bring the pieces to the table, we need, of course, technology, of course, science, but of course, resources, but all that is easier. The most important element is trust. Trust from all the actors, and that takes time. I think that is the biggest challenge when looking for the missing, and of course, talking about trust, putting the families on the center. Families have to be an important, a fundamental role, should have a fundamental role in knowing what are all these actors doing in order to find their loved ones and to be for them being part of that process.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, please.
I want to quickly I want to add things, because when we are talking about the transitional justice things, this case is very important for the Syrian audience. So the most challenges and the most obstacle for us, the government I'm talking here, how to balance between starting a comprehensive transitional justice path and the necessity of stability in order for economic development and reconciliation. So because of the memory and because of the long authoritarian period in Syria, and half of the Syrian people have been affected from the Syrian regime. More than 500,000 have been killed or tortured or imprisoned in Syria. A lot of families, more than 1,100 families, they are still waiting or any kind of information about their relative sons or relatives. So they put pressure all the time on the government that the government should start immediately the path of transitional justice. But at the same time, that during this transitional, maybe Professor can help us here more.
Sure.
During to ensure the success of transitional period, that you have two key: security, stability, and the economic development. So here, the one and the most important question, how can combine
All of these
between both
factors,
of
yeah.
them? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Minister. Fascinating insights indeed. Professor, let me come to you. I want to raise one point that Ms. Kuntina talked about information sharing. That's very crucial, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, one way you can share more information is when you are united. So if there's more unity, people will be freely talking about what they want to talk about, right? And Syria, of course, as we know, especially during the time of the brutal Assad dictatorship, had problems with unity. Right now, yes, there has been some progress when it comes to reuniting the country, but there are still many obstacles. Professor Kosi, I know you have been researching on this. Tell us, how important is it for Syria to remain united?
You know, I think the problem since the beginning of the Syria, the established, it has been designed to be fragmented. So fragmented so that people are, different groups will be against each other, and it's more of a divide and rule kind of system. And unfortunately, at some point, all the power and all the resources of the country have been concentrated on one particular group, and also other groups have been silenced. Their identities, their rights have not been recognized. So that even generated more mistrust among the population. But the problem was not between the communities or identity groups or religious groups. The problem was some small group concentrated all the power and resources and wanted to manipulate the country. So these divisions, these artificial divisions were helpful for them to manipulate whenever they need. So I think what we need for the moment is all these fragmented groups should come to the conclusion that this brutal regime, past regime, have benefited all our differences. So they should come together, start the dialogue, and try to formulate a much more inclusive political system, inclusive social system. Not just the political system, but the social fabric of the Syrian society has been divided. And we know that in the past, some of the countries decided to institutionalize these divides in Lebanon. So the system of confessionalism, unfortunately, institutionalized divides. I think Syrian friends should not get into that path. They should find inclusive institutions, inclusive social institutions, inclusive educational institutions, inclusive religious institutions, and inclusive political institutions, and even the inclusive military and other services. I think this is the core of unity. Yes, dialogue is important, but at the same time, you have to institutionalize this inclusivity of all the groups. It will be difficult because there's a strong mistrust among the communities, but you can only, bring this trust gradually. So if you exclude some groups because they are not trusted, then this will also increase the polarization, and this will not help normalization in the society. This is very difficult, but you have the maybe 100 years of legacy of division, fragmentation, and unfortunately, all the legacy, historical legacy, Ottoman legacy of inclusivity, multiculturalism has been forgotten. So I think at the roots, at the center of the Syrian society, there are some historical legacies, but I think all these maybe authoritarian, totalitarian regime put some kind of barrier to all these positive experiences. So I think the Syrian society has a lot to reinvent their own traditions and ties.
All right, thank you very much for your insights. For that, we're tight on time, but I know you want to respond, so please go ahead.
الحقيقة أنا لا أتفق مع البروفيسور أن سوريا كانت لديها انقسامات منذ 100 عام. قبل نظام الأسد سوريا كانت تعيش في حالة من التوافق المجتمعي الكبير. على سبيل المثال أنا أيام ما كنت صغيرة في المدرسة لا أعلم من بجانبي في الدرج هل هو مسيحي أم هو علوي أم هو درزي. لم يكن لدينا هذا الانقسامات الطائفية أبداً، ولكن نظام الأسد حاول منذ بداية أن استلم قيادة البلاد بتكريس الطائفية وبتكريس الانقسامات، وازدادت هذه الحدة في 15 سنة الأخيرة. ولكن السوريون ليسوا منقسمين ولا توجد لديهم إرث انقسامي سابق. وتحدث عن الفترة العثمانية، بعد الفترة العثمانية أتى الاحتلال الفرنسي. حتى الاحتلال الفرنسي اللي كان موجود في سوريا لم يقسم سوريا ولم يدفع الشعب السوري إلى الانقسام، بل توحد الشعب السوري لكي يخرج المحتل من بلده. أما بالنسبة للتجربة اللبنانية فهي ليست تجربة رائدة، ولا نفكر أصلاً أن نكون مثل جارتنا في لبنان بالتقسيم الطائفي. نحن في الحوار الوطني الذي أجريناه لاحظنا أن ما يجمع السوريين أكثر بكثير مما يفرقهم. هناك بعض القيادات السياسية أو الدينية تحاول أن تأخذ لها موقع في سوريا الحديثة عبر أن تأخذ مجتمعها إلى صفها، ولكن نحن نعلم أن هذا المجتمع غير موافق على الكثير من تصرفاتهم أو من توجهاتهم. ونحن من خلال الحوار إن شاء الله سوف نجمع كل المجاميع السورية تحت قيادة موحدة وطنية سورية إن شاء الله.
Thank you so much, Minister. Very quickly, we're tight on time, but
the same comment. Just I allow myself just to disagree with the professor regarding Syria. Was not designed to be fragmented. I think the external powers always invested in the fragmentation of the Syrian people. So during the French mandate, the French government divided Syria into 4 states, and at the end of the day, the Syrian people, regardless of all sects, decided to reintegrate and to reunite under one state. And of course, we are facing the same challenging now. A year ago, we have status quo division into 4 regions, but the Syrian people decided another choice and to reunite and decided to follow the regime and to start the path forward to development and state of citizenship.
Right, so as I understand from what you've just told me, both of you, this was a notorious idea, this division was a notorious idea adopted by Assad, and basically divide and rule, and this is what he was applying to the
that's
Syrian
why
people.
I told you that the Assad regime institutionalized and utilized the sectarian discourse and sectarianism as survival tools.
Okay. You know, the director is not going to be happy with me, but Professor, I'll let you respond. So please, go ahead.
Well, I agree whatever they say. I mean, that's the, authoritarian regime tried to divide and rule. So we know that at the genuine course of the Syrian society, the society is reconciled for centuries. So I think, but for the moment, some external actors try to exploit this difference again. As you know, in Suwaida, in the northeast, in the Tartus Latakia, some actors try to instrumentalize these divisions that are fakely fabricated by the Assad regime. So whatever needs to be done is to rebring all this. So what I am saying is that these divides have been fabricated by authoritarian regime, and now some other external actors also want to exploit these differences again. So it would be wise to bring everybody together, institutionalize unity, establish some cross-cutting institutions, and rebuild some collective ethos that would bring all Syrians together. So that's what I'm saying.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead, very quickly.
Briefly,
yes.
and talking about challenges and what has been just discussed, that is another challenge. How to work with a society that has been pushed into this narrative for so many years, And we see it in different parts of the country, in the coastal areas, in Sueda, in the Northeast, and that is another big challenge for Syrians, and of course also in terms of the missing, in looking for the missing. I would just like to finish saying this. Looking for the missing is an ethical endeavor, and not only for Syrians, but from all actors, and it always touches upon political sensibilities. Us as an independent institution, and also the national institution, I would say, having a humanitarian mandate, we have to overcome these challenges regarding different groups. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would love for this discussion to continue for much longer. But unfortunately, this is the time that we have right now. I'll have to wrap it. And one thing, I would like to say, I understand the road ahead for Syria is difficult. But more than anything else, I think, and I'm sure Minister and everyone else here with me is going to agree on that, it's the resilience of the Syrian people that's going to rebuild the country, that's going to reconstruct the country, and that's going to ensure that the Syrian society recovers completely.
This is the fate.
Yes. Thank you very much. On that note, to all my panelists, thank you very much for joining us here at TRT World Forum 2025. And thanks to all of you for being here today. And I hope you enjoyed the first day of the forum. Make no mistake, the forum continues tomorrow. So we are hoping to see all of you tomorrow again. Thank you very much.
Ben de şimdi bırakayım.